So, Cathaoirleach, we've heard the government oscillate between self-congratulatory backslapping, defensive, self-righteous attack rhetoric. I have to say, neither of which are grounded in any sense of reality. And I notice that Taoiseach isn't here, Cathaoirleach, to participate in this debate. That's a first in my recollection. So perhaps the Taoiseach can't, after all the bragging and all the hot air, can't present himself to stand by and stand over his budget. Be curious to know why he's not here. This could have been, should have been a budget to turn the page on the persisting and ever-worsening crises in housing, health, and on what is an overwhelming cost of living crisis for so many households. To address the biggest barriers to ordinary people fulfilling their dreams and ambitions, to make Ireland a better place, to build a good future, to finally give a generation of young people the hope and real opportunity to build a secure, prosperous life here at home, to change direction and invest with ambition in a new future where you can put an affordable roof over your head, whether you wish to buy a home of your own, rent a home, or require a council home that provides you with security, to make sure that you get the health care and treatment you need when you need it, see a GP when you're sick, be confident that an ambulance will arrive on time, that you will have the dignity and won't be left on a trolley in a corridor or on a waiting list for years on end, to provide childcare that doesn't break the bank and begin the work of building a modern public childcare system, and to deliver real help with the cost of living, to make a long-term difference when it comes to meeting the barrage of bills that land week in and week out. This is the budget that Sinn Féin would have introduced yesterday. And when the dust settles, when the fanfare fades, when the spin dies down, it's clear that your budget has no horizon beyond an election campaign. Big on short-term once-off measures, but with no answer to the big questions and the big pressures in people's lives. You see, there is no plan, no direction ahead, even with unprecedented resources. At a time when money really isn't an issue, even in this time, you cannot rise to solve the obvious hardships, the obvious crises that give rise to so much pressure and despondency in our society. You know, the saying goes, you can fool some of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all of the people all of the time. Your budget is a three-card trick. You ask people to look over there at the big numbers, the big money, to distract them from the young couple who will continue to save and save but can't buy a house, from the daughter who will still live in the box room of her parents' house with her own kids, from the child with scoliosis and spina bifida who will continue to wait in agony, or the low-paid worker who will still have to choose between heating and eating. You're spending billions. You've billions more to invest, and yet you couldn't name one major challenge that you're resolving. You can't point one crisis that you're fixing. You can't tell us one single way you will make people's lives better for the long term beyond the election campaign. You see, it's all frantic energy, but no substance, no new ideas, and most importantly, no results. You're hoping that the big numbers will hide all of that. But when you cut through all the spin, in the long run, it's just more of the same. It's actually another version of your budget from last year. Your PR and soundbite machine want people to believe that this is somehow a shiny new government. You've done the Taoiseach hokey-cokey, 3 different Taoiseachs since 2020, but this coalition has been in office for more than 4 years, and this is your 5th budget. Failure written across each of them. Yesterday, Minister Donoghue described this budget as a budget of hope. Well, hope for who? Vulture funds? Big landlords? The banks? Because When Fine Gael talk of hope, it's simply code for telling working people and ordinary communities to wait and wait for improvements that they have no intention of ever delivering. And how do we know this? Because they've shown us again and again. Fine Gael has been in government for nearly 14 years, joined at the hip with their friends in Fianna Fáil for the last 8. Over a decade to do things differently, to finally deliver for workers and families, but no. You're incapable of changing direction. It's just not in your DNA. And that's why budgets will come and budgets will go, but nothing really changes for those who need change the most. This budget is a directionless, lazy, copy and paste politics from your tired old playbook. The recycling of the same failed policies and broken perspective. The money is there, the resources are there, the excuses are gone, but the political will from government to deal with the big challenges of the day is absent. So let's just call it like it is. Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil are the problem. There was a housing crisis before this budget. There will be a crisis after it. Our hospitals overcrowded before this budget. They'll be overcrowded after it. Parents needing affordable childcare before this budget. They'll still need affordable childcare after it. And by the way, Taoiseach in absentia, Taoiseach, there was a cost of living crisis before this budget, and when all of the one-off money is spent, there'll be a cost of living crisis after it. Sinn Féin proposed a cost of living package to bring the very necessary and immediate relief that people need in the here and now and beyond the vista of an election. But government failed to grasp this. Your energy credit will be cancelled out by extra charges. The benefit of your rent credit will be erased by further rent hikes that you have refused to stop. In his speech to the Fine Gael Oireachtas in April, the Taoiseach said, "We have to fix housing once and for all." He plucked a figure out of thin air just to grab headlines. Another soundbite that followed Micheál Martin's claim that the government would fix housing. That followed Leo Varadkar's promise to make housing his main priority. 3 Taoiseach, 3 empty promises, promises broken. I wonder, did the Taoiseach notice the housing crisis before coming to office? Did all of you not notice it while you've been sitting at Cabinet for 8 years? You're clearly banking on those in housing need who need a home of their own, the ripped-off renters, the generation left behind, that they have some form of amnesia, that their memories are faulty. This budget is no different from what has gone before. Government has ignored the call of its own Housing Commission for a radical reset in housing. But let's break down your offering. No additional funding beyond what you've already committed. No increase in your inadequate targets. Not one extra social or affordable home. It actually beggars belief. You've no intention of cracking housing affordability for working people. Instead, you have chosen to double down on policies and turbocharge schemes that hang a price tag of €500,000 on your so-called affordable homes. What planet are you living on? And what of renters who've been hammered by rent hike after rent hike after rent hike? On your watch, people are paying on average more than €6,000 extra a year in rent. You offer a renter's credit, but again, you refuse to stop rent increases. You see, for this measure to have an impact, you have to do both things, but you're not prepared to do that. So what does that mean? It means that then, in reality, that this is a €1,000 bonus for landlords, for greedy vulture funds and wealthy property funds, not for hard-pressed renters looking for relief. Some have described this as a giveaway budget, but this is the budget in which you officially give up on housing. You've thrown in the towel. Your budget is a recipe to ensure that house prices will continue to go up beyond the reach of working people. Extortionate rent will continue to go up, and the number of people, including children, cast into the nightmare of homelessness, that will go up too. More children growing up in B&Bs and hotels, more children robbed of the childhood that they deserve. The consequences of the housing crisis belong to Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, and you need to own that fact. A crisis that has sent young nurses, teachers, Gardaí to Perth, Toronto and Boston in search of the opportunities denied to them at home by your bad decisions. And this is a defining disgrace of your government. Our young people denied the opportunity to build futures at home or to return home to their country to live and contribute here. A shameful, shameful state of affairs in a time of plenty, and it is utterly, utterly unacceptable to us. Sinn Féin has the plan to bring the housing crisis to the end. We will make housing affordable, bring home ownership back into reach for working people, build 300,000 homes in 5 years, a figure arrived at by listening to the experts, including your own Housing Commission. You should try that sometime. In this budget, in our budget, we set out how we could deliver 21,000 social and affordable homes next year, put a month's rent back into people's pockets, stop rent increases for 3 years. No half measures here, gentlemen, real solutions. And the Sinn Féin plan, A Home of Your Own, will transform housing in Ireland, and it will give back the hope of a generation that has been stolen by you in Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil. And we will be ready to start delivering it from day one. Now that's real energy, because it's backed up with a real plan and real action. The Taoiseach has said that he remembers the names and faces of children with scoliosis and spina bifida left waiting years in agony for life-changing surgery. I wonder, did he and his colleagues remember their names and faces when they sat down to write this budget? Because it compounds the damage that has been caused by making and breaking a promise to these children when Simon Harris was Minister for Health back in 2017. 7 years on, and that promise still hasn't been kept. And this budget ensures that these children will continue to wait in pain, continue to deteriorate, and some of them will run out of time. That's the heartbreaking fact. And as their parents listened on to your budget, they also must listen to you all deny, distance, evade responsibility for the National Children's Hospital debacle. The Taoiseach was the Minister for Health who green-lighted this project and the contract with the developer. He promised back in 2019 that the hospital would be finished. A former Taoiseach also went so far as to say it would happen unless a meteorite struck. Look, there was no meteorite and there's no hospital. And here we are now in 2024, and nobody in government can tell us when the hospital will open, much less what the final costs will be. But that reality and that truth doesn't fit neatly into a soundbite or the narrative of spin that now surrounds this government. Last year, this government left a €3 billion hole in the budget, health budget, with disastrous consequences. And then the recruitment embargo has to top that list. An incredibly reckless government decision when our health system is crying out for staff needed to deliver the care people need. And again, this time round, no clarity or transparency on the funding of the health service. Government talks of hope, but there's very little in this budget to give people hope when it comes to healthcare. Very little to expand capacity in our hospitals, increase the number of beds to the levels required in community or in mental health. We've heard story after story of older people in particular, and the very ill left on hospital trolleys. And they will find it very hard to find any hope in this budget. You've provided only €120 million for new current expenditure. That's paltry when you consider the scale of the challenge. You've given enough just for things to stand still. You try to present catch-up money as new investment. It's not. And people will see through this because people will be hit hardest with the consequences of this decision. Where is the vision and the measures to tackle crisis waiting lists, to reduce the costs of healthcare and medicines in a meaningful way, to invest in community and local services? It's not in your budget, but you will find that vision, Oireachtas, in Sinn Féin's budget proposal for 2025. An ambitious additional investment of €672 million for current expenditure, €312 million for capital expenditure. That is €860 million more than your government, and every bit of it is needed. To provide 150,000 extra medical cards for working families, to reduce the cost of medicines for all families, bring in a price reduction for the drug payment scheme, having it kick in at €50 rather than €80, and to phase out prescription charges over 3 years, allowing us to begin the work of delivering 5,000 hospital beds, 2,000 community beds by 2031. These are the plans that set the bedrock of the road to universal healthcare, free at the point of care in the next decade, to address the scandalous waiting lists, to repair our mental health services that are on their needs. That's what's needed, but your government doesn't get it and never will. Parents and families cry out for affordable childcare. Many, as you know, spend the equivalent of a second mortgage on fees. The Taoiseach raised expectations that government would do something impactful in this budget to bring down those high costs, but this budget dashes those expectations. Again, clearly the Taoiseach was more interested in grabbing headlines than in actually doing the work to deliver the change, improvements and relief that parents badly need. There's nothing new to make childcare affordable, nothing to build capacity and deliver the increase in childcare spaces so badly needed. Critically, no clear commitment to increase the pay of early years educators and childcare professionals to a fair level. This is a real betrayal of the parents of Ireland. They'll continue to pay big fees, continue to search for spaces that don't exist, continue to be stressed today and worried about the future. Our plan would deliver the change they need, not a soundbite, a plan. A plan to make childcare affordable at €10 a day per child by next September. A plan to deliver early years educators and childcare professionals the pay increase for which they have been campaigning now for years. A plan to build capacity, increase childcare spaces across the country and extend leave to 52 weeks for parents to care for their babies in the first year. Important steps on the road to public provision. Our plan would be a game changer for parents. And let me be clear, when we give families a commitment, we will keep it. Childcare at €10 a day would be delivered with Sinn Féin in government. 2 weeks ago, the Taoiseach hit out at a Sinn Féin plan to invest €1 billion of the Apple tax money into working class communities, those who really took the pain when Fianna Fáil destroyed the economy and bore the brunt of Fine Gael's cruel austerity. He said at the time that we shouldn't be dividing Ireland. And it says everything about his mentality that levelling the playing field for those communities and those left behind is somehow divisive. Tellingly, he displays no such concern when it comes to tax changes, dividing Ireland into winners and losers, skewed to benefit those at the top the most. Take the income tax package. This will mean that somebody on €150,000 will get €959 of a break, but a worker on €40,000 will only get €369. I want to know where the fairness is in that. More for those who have more. That's a real Fine Gael mantra. You know, there was a better way and a fairer way to give people a break on their take-home pay. USC was brought in by Fianna Fáil following their disastrous crash. It was supposed to be temporary, an emergency measure, but you spent the last decade hardwiring it into the tax system. Our proposal is to abolish the USC for the first €45,000 of income for every worker. And this will mean effectively that average workers won't pay any USC at all. And this would put €604 back into the pockets of those earning 40 grand. Now that would have been fair. That is the approach that should have been taken. Another year, another budget, and you lot just couldn't resist giving a tax break to landlords again, €800, more than you're giving to most workers. Contrast this with your failure to deliver a decent increase to the minimum wage. We would have delivered an increase of €1.10 per hour, but you've thrown low-paid workers under the bus once again. And what of the banks, who've made a massive profit on the backs of mortgage holders paying big hikes in interest rates? Well, you didn't lay a glove on them. No increase in the banking levy, not one red cent extra. We would have increased it by €400 million and ensured that banks pay their fair share. But you've made it very clear, if any of us needed reminding, whose side Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil are on, and it's certainly not on the side of workers and families. You never have been, and you never will. 230,000 children in this state are living with deprivation, up again on the watch of this government. And this budget, despite all of the blather, won't change that reality. So much for your aim of making Ireland the best country in Europe to be a child. People now look at your sound bites, you know, and in the wake of this budget they ask, where is the follow-through? Where's the seriousness in any of this? I'd like to ask also why carers are to wait until next July to get the benefit of the means test threshold increase. It's not right that carers are once again pushed to the back of the queue. We would have increased the income threshold to €730 for a single person and €1,460 for a couple, compared to the government's proposal, which falls very short of that. Our measure would have seen almost 4,000 additional carers becoming eligible for carers' allowance. It would also have meant that the almost 6,500 people currently on a reduced payment due to means testing would have become eligible for a full payment. I want to make clear again that in government, Sinn Féin would abolish the means test for carers' allowance. Our budget also would have introduced a pay-related carers benefit for those who have to give up work to care for someone, ensuring that a carer wouldn't see their income fall off a cliff edge and that they'd see it protected. People with disabilities have a right to live their lives as equal citizens, accessing work, education, services and independent living. We know that people with disabilities are at much higher risk of poverty, but you wouldn't guess that from your budget. We proposed a €20 weekly increase in disability payments. Instead, you came up with €12. You know, the difference would have been very, very significant. People with disabilities deserve more from government, and I want to use this opportunity to again call on you to ratify the UN optional protocol on the rights of people with disabilities. Your failure to address these big issues and more begs the question, who on earth would trust this government of serial wasters with the billions in the public purse? You're great at spending and wasting other people's money. The waste exposed on your watch has been breathtaking. The most expensive hospital in the world, $1.5 billion over budget. The most expensive bicycle shed, over $300,000. The most expensive security hut in the world, 1.4 million, using 10 million euros of the public's money to stop us from receiving 14 billion euros in Apple tax. And of course, modular housing costing more than 400 grand, more than bricks and mortar homes. Your incompetence is off the wall, and you're also incapable of taking responsibility. Maybe the reason Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil won't tackle housing, health and childcare is not only because you have the wrong policies, maybe it's because you just can't. You're not able. You have the financial firepower now and the resources. That won't always be the case. So we need a government that will use money and resources wisely, plan and invest in the future with real purpose. And this has to mean an end to waste and delay, the culture of mañana, the go slow, the never, never. People regularly ask themselves, why do the basic things not work here? How is it that services, infrastructure, efficiencies taken for granted in other countries always seem and ask too far? Affordable housing, affordable rent and childcare, healthcare when you need it, public transport, properly funded classrooms, the staples of a decent standard of living and society, always too far in Ireland. Too much, too far for Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil, government after government. You're responsible not only for the housing crisis, eye-watering rents and childcare costs, but also for the system and the culture that has enabled these crises. The inertia that sees you sit back as commentators and spinners as these crises have damaged and hurt people. And the anemic, half-baked provisions of your budget reflect once again that you simply shouldn't be in government. There is no way the 25 billion euros of the people's money should be put in your hands. You've shown again and again and again that you can't be trusted to make the right or competent decisions. Peirod a tóráte faoi buiséad flathúil, ní raibh siad flathúlach le pobal na Gaeltachta. Is éigean go raibh pingíní suaracha rua fáil dar deanga. Tá nós orsa ag na Gael an iver seacht a úsod chun béim a chur rudaí, tá brí cúmhachtach ag buint leis. Mar hampla, déine mé mo seacht níhil, cilíonn sé sin go bhfuil mé dóíre. Fecum go bhfuil seacht nuair a níos lú bartathe sa bhuiséad nó an mhuinú a bhfuil sin féin in ormuiséad malártach don teanga. In áit an 63 milliún breise multa agange níl ach 9 milliún aimsithe ag an rialtas, muoinú G4 san áireamh. Colour me shocked. Fad is atá géircéim tithiíochta agus teanga ag brú na seachmais ar an Gaeltacht, agus an téasóg ag éilimh Gael scoilíocht agus ulmhíonn an seachtar le cóhfuil Fianna Fáil is cóhfuil Fine Gael. Bheadh sin féin seacht nuair níos fearr don Gaeilge, déanfaí mise mo cheacht níhil. This is the final budget from your government, a budget that seeks to use billions to blind people to more than 4 years of repeated failure. The budget is the government's day, a day to make everything seem rosy in the garden, but I don't believe the people will be fooled. The time is coming when they will have the opportunity to ensure that Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil do not get to introduce the first budget of the next government. A general election is coming, the sooner the better. Only the Taoiseach knows the date, but we say bring it on. Name the date. It's clear that Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil now believe that you're cruising back into the doors of government building, waltzing back to power, hand in hand. That you'll have it all your own way again, because you truly in the end believe that government belongs to you, that you have some special right to power. I think the ordinary people of Ireland might have something to say about that. You want to believe that those of us who believe in real change are on the back foot, that those of us determined to make Ireland a better, fairer, united country are on the ropes. Well, believe that if you want. If we enter this election as the underdog, so be it. We've no fear of that, because there is clear brew water now and a very clear choice. Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil have the backs of vulture funds, rack-renting corporate landlords, financial speculators, and all of those at the top. We have the back of ordinary workers, families and communities, those who have waited too long for a government that is on their side, and people now have a decision to make. Workers and families can't afford another 5 years of Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael running the show. It's time for a new government with the right priorities, with the determination to roll up its sleeves and get the work done, make improvements, invest in the future and make a lasting difference to their lives. A government for working people. That's the government Sinn Féin would deliver. So to the Taoiseach, call the election and let the people have their say. Hear, hear.